Greetings, I'm Chappers and welcome to the top 5 myths all about learning the guitar. So these are common held beliefs by the mass global populace about the way in which you should learn guitar or the way that you shouldn't learn guitar. Myth number 1. Of course you should always start learning the guitar on an acoustic guitar because that teaches you everything that you'd need to know and makes you stronger and gives you all the information you require, and classical is the best way forward. Completely false. Many guitar players who are absolutely amazing started off on the electric guitar and not an acoustic guitar. They're very different kinds of instrument, despite the fact that they look similar number of strings, they have a body. They operate quite differently. And there are many kinds of techniques that you cannot do on a nylon strung classical guitar that you can do with a more modern electric guitar. In my opinion, you should really learn to play guitar on the instrument that you'd like to end up playing, because it will really give younger beginners a lot more inspiration and excitement, and it'll make them more likely to pick up the instrument and just practice and practice, which of course is what's going to make perfect. In fact, I would say that a nylon strung acoustic guitar, especially an affordable one, is much more physically demanding for a beginner, especially a young beginner, than electric guitar. Myth number 2. You have to get an amplifier to practice your guitar if you are playing electric guitar. Completely false. I spent the first months of my playing without an amplifier, and again I know many guitar players who never had an amp for ages, one guy in fact for years, and you just can play an electric guitar unplugged and you'll still hear it. Obviously, the better the guitar, the louder it will be, is a pretty good rule of thumb that I like to use. But you'll still be able to hear it. For example, it works. You can hear it perfectly, and in fact, I think playing without an amplifier sometimes installs really good practical technical prowess. Number 3, you should always start off with an affordable guitar. Now this especially applies to electric guitar players who want to play rock, metal, blues. They should always buy a really cheap, affordable guitar. Completely false. The value of a guitar has absolutely nothing to do with how fast you will learn. It's way more to do with your budget and what you like the look of and the feel of. So for example, some people may have enough money to buy, beautiful Les Paul, or even a custom shop Les Paul, and that could be the very first guitar that they ever invest some money in and buy, and that's fine if you can afford it. Awesome, go ahead and buy, a really nice Les Paul or a great Strat or a PRS or something shiny and stunning. We shouldn't be sort of pay shaming people that can afford to buy expensive guitars. On the flip side, you can buy some brilliant, more affordable guitars like the Yamaha Pacifica, for example, is an incredible guitar. It's really what fits the player that is the best thing to start with. In fact, some beginners might pick up a Les Paul standard like this and just go, oh, it feels really big in my hand and it just feels really uncomfortable and the edges and I don't like it. And they would be better suited to something different. Whereas someone else might pick this up and go, this is the best thing I've ever played in my entire life. This is what I want to rock out on for the next 10 to 15 years. So it doesn't matter how much you spend on the instrument. It's way more important that you stick to your budget and that you also buy something that gets you really excited about picking it up and playing it. If, however, you are unsure that you're going to stick at learning the guitar and you're cautious about spending more money than you would normally because you don't want to waste the money, 2 things to consider. Thing number 1 is that guitars are an investment. Big brands tend to retain their value, not all of it, obviously, and it really depends model to model, but if you kept one of these for a couple of years, it's going to retain a lot of its value as opposed to a more affordable guitar that generally will not retain its value. The other thing to consider is, of course, that you can borrow an instrument from a friend or a friend of a friend or a relative and have a go for a couple of weeks and just see if you get on with it, because you never know until you try. Myth number 4, you should always start on thin strings because thin strings are much easier to play. Completely false. I taught guitar professionally for many, many, many years, and what you'll discover if you do that is that students come in all shapes and sizes. I had students who were 8 years old and a little girl. I had students who were 50 years old and a huge, great big guy. And they have different bodies. Again, it really comes down to the student and what they need best to fit their requirements. For example, a little 8-year-old girl or a little 8-year-old boy might have softer fingers, not quite as strong forearm muscles and grip muscles, and they might need 8-gauge strings or 9-gauge strings just to get to grips with the ergonomics and the basic fundamental physical dexterity required to play the guitar. Whereas a 50-year-old guy who's been doing physical labour for many years with really calloused hands, massive strength, who can just pick up anything, a particular guy I know of who started learning couldn't even feel the strings, and he had 9s. He couldn't physically feel them under his fingertips because he was so strong and so calloused, and he needed to use 11s. So it's really what best fits the student. And the last myth, and probably the most controversial of all, is that you should definitely learn to read and write music if you want to be a guitar player. Well, now this is kind of a myth, but it has roots in some truth. So let me explain to you. If your objective is to be a rock, metal, blues guitar player playing electric guitar in a band where you memorize the songs, you improvise solos, or you write a solo, go out and play gigs, you don't need to read and write music to do any of that. And in fact, there are thousands of mega professional, huge guitar players that couldn't read or write a note of music. It doesn't make a difference to them. If, however, you are going to want to be in an environment where you work with, socialize with, collaborate with classical musicians or pit of an orchestra, for example, or some session work, you're definitely going to need to read rhythm notation and tab, and it would definitely benefit you to know some serious music theory. But you don't have to read and write music to play everyday electric guitar, blues, rock, metal. It's not really required, because nowadays we have some incredible tools that if Mozart, Beethoven had at their hands at the time, would have revolutionized everything. For example, video and recorded audio. It's actually impossible to tell from written music all of the little nuances and details that composers from a long time ago really wanted to get across, which is why there are so many interpretations of classical pieces, because you don't know the velocity of the hits on the keyboard, for example, the speed, whether they're retardo, whether they're keeping it going. Don't make fun of retardo. You know, the pace, are they slowing it down and then speeding up? How hard are they hitting the keys? You don't know because the information's not in the written music. Of course, video conveys everything. And in my peer group, all of the guitar players I see around me expressing music and sharing and collaborating and working together, we tend to use video, recorded audio, and very occasionally tab with rhythm notation. While I'm here, I just really wanted to say a massive thank you to Total Guitar for voting me Total Guitar Personality of the Year for the second year running. It's a huge honour, it means a lot to me, and I just wanted to say a massive thank you, A, to Total Guitar, and B, to all of you guys for voting for me, especially since I didn't really tell anybody. I think I posted on Facebook and that was it. It means a lot to me, it really does, so thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this. Enjoy the heated debate in the comment section below. I've been Rob Chapman. Chappers out.